Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on Laid Back the Zinka podcast. And our topic for this week is the curious African parent. And our guest for this week is Dr. Kene and Maduemem. Dr. Kene is a consultant in pediatric emergency medicine here in the UK. Dr. Kene, this is your second time on the show. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Ariza.
Yeah, but you are one of the few people who have appeared on the show, on the podcast now more than once. How does that feel?
Okay. I feel honored and privileged, and yeah, I feel proud.
But do you have any expectation? I know the first one went really, really well, but considering this is your second time doing it now, do you have any expectation for this particular topic we're going to talk about today?
No, I think I remember you always tell me that it's always chilled, that
Yeah.
and that's what I remember, that it's always chilled. So I don't really have any expectations. I just know that it should go easy, and I will be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Mm,
So
yeah.
let's get right into it then. When we say the curious African parent, what does that actually mean? What do you mean by that?
Okay. I think it's a lot of grammar. It's a lot of English that I put together. Curious. I think everyone, everyone, everyone knows. I think I would assume. I think it's fair for me to assume that everyone knows what being curious is. And I think when I say the curious African parent, and I just didn't invent that. It's been what I've experienced from my day-to-day lives, which interestingly, it's more in the hospital than at home because I spend more time at work than at home, just like every other full-time employer in this country.
Yeah.
So I have I've come across a lot of African parents all over the country where I've worked. And I do know that being a curious African parent means that you always want to ask questions. And I think we have to, and that's what we teach our children to always ask questions.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask questions, you won't learn.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know.
True. 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 So if you don't ask questions, you would know what you don't know. But
Mhm.
is what is that why curiosity is a good thing? Because I've seen a lot of people, they don't like asking people questions. A lot of people feel like asking a question makes them they feel like they're at a disadvantage, that they shouldn't be asking questions. It makes them feel like in a variable state. They should be the ones offering the answers. So
Mhm.
why do you think curiosity is actually an important trait to have to always ask questions?
Yeah, I think curiosity is a very important skill. Not everyone has it, and sometimes some people have to learn how to be curious, whilst others actually are curious from the start. Naturally they're curious people. But I think we teach our children to be curious. We teach our children to ask questions in class all the time. If you don't understand, ask questions. So I personally don't see the reason why parents should not embrace the art of being curious. I think it's something we should do, especially when you are in a foreign land. And I would still say you don't know what you don't know. I think if our African parents remember that you don't know what you don't know, I think people will become more comfortable with being curious. And I agree with you, obviously. People don't want to ask questions because they don't want to seem that they are being stupid
Yeah.
or daft. But I think that it's okay to ask questions and it's okay to feel funny about it. But when you think about the benefit of asking questions and what you may learn from them, I think it's worth being curious.
Yeah. Uh, Also, like all my life, I've always been a curious person,
Mhm.
and at the point you realize some people start telling you, even some things I know. I end up asking questions again because I just want to hear the other person's view or perspective about the whole thing. You see people telling you, "Oh, you ask a lot of questions," or like, or maybe they'll tell you, "How come you don't know this?" Like so, like something condescending. And I think maybe that's why a lot of people shy away from asking those questions. So, do you think curiosity actually helps us to be open-minded and patient with others and like less judgmental?
Yeah, I think so. I think from what you've said about, you knowing something and you want to ask questions to know more. Yeah, I think it depends on how the question is posed. Because, for example, myself in my field, even as a consultant, people think I know it all, but I don't. I still ask questions. But I think I suppose, and the way I ask questions would be that I have this question, but this is what I would do. I wonder if you would do it differently.
Okay.
So in that way, you've shown that you have an
An
answer to
idea.
your question, yeah,
Yeah.
but there may be another way to do things because there's so many ways to skin a rat. It's skin a cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you can rarely go wrong by being curious. I've never seen anyone actually what's the word? Anyone has actually gone the wrong way by being curious
Yeah.
because particularly in this country where people would try to be polite to you anyway,
Yeah.
so even if you ask a silly question, no one will make you feel bad, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good because people want to be polite to you. So I've not really, in my experience, I've not necessarily come across parents who um I found to be off-putting because they ask a lot of questions. Because I think people should ask questions, yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you're new to the country and when you really don't know a lot of things going on. And if you don't ask questions, you just feel that what you know is the only way to do things. And there are so many ways to do things, yeah.
I I agree. There are so many ways, and I agree. Like nobody knows everything. Even just like you said, you're a consultant. You are at the acme of your own field, but you still ask questions. You actually understand what's this and what's that. Like other ways of doing things. In my
Yeah.
experience, teaching people, I always tell them teaching and learning is a two-way thing. Even if
Mm.
it doesn't matter if I'm the one standing in front of you, by teaching you, I'm also learning because there must be something I will
Yeah.
learn from you as well. It's all about just
Yeah.
staying curious. But as immigrant parents, how do
Mm.
you think these parents can actually stay curious, like about other cultures, about
Mm.
things happening around them, and their children, and are curious
Mm.
about their children specifically? Because sometimes they get lost in the hustle per se. They're always working. They
Mm.
end up not being so curious about their children as well. So how can they
Mm.
stay curious?
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that being an immigrant is a big deal.
Yeah,
It's hard work, and we've come to Great Britain, and there are some British people that are also immigrants in other countries like Australia and even other European countries, even Africa.
yeah,
So I think that it's important to acknowledge that it's natural for African parents to gravitate towards our African people
yeah,
because at the end of the day, you want to mingle more with your people, and that's just the way nature works.
yeah,
We have to now understand that the parents, that the parents coming into this country are bringing in children who will be integrating with other children from different kinds of backgrounds,
yeah,
ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. When I
yeah,
say socioeconomic, the rich, the poor, and all that.
yeah,
So, and in as much as I've heard parents talk about, I want to be in a particular city, I want to live in Birmingham because my children will see more of black people. Well, that's okay. However, you still need to know that sometimes you need to learn from other people, from other white people,
yeah,
to succeed, and that's the reality.
yeah,
You need to learn from them to succeed, and I think although parents, because we are adults, change is quite difficult when you're an adult. We should learn to be more open-minded and learn from our children because sometimes now our adults would have to learn from our children
yeah,
about what's going on. And they should be open-minded about it and be chilled about it, that we would have to learn from the children. We would have to learn from the Gen Z. Is that what they call them now? The
yeah,
Gen Z are the younger ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
We have to learn from them. There are things you learn from them, be like, wow. And, we learn good things, obviously, from them. So I think we as parents have to model that being open-minded.
yeah,
If your child goes to school, for example, I went to my nephew's birthday on the Easter weekend, and there were other children, and I was so pleased to see other children from other ethnicities
yeah,
that were invited, that from his class, and I met their Asian moms and Middle Eastern parents, and I think one white parent, and it was really good. You sit down there, you chat about life, and you'll be surprised what you learn.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay for children to know where they come from, their root. Children have to know where they come from. They have to know that they're Africans, they're Nigerians, they're Igbos, they're Yorubas. They have to know their root. We should also remember that they have another world where they integrate and mingle with other children
Yes.
from other parts of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. I agree with that. Like, but what you said, I'm going to take it back now. What you said about us learning from children, because this naturally, or maybe even from research, I know children learn what is acceptable by actually watching us, the parents, what we do, the
Mm,
teachers, and people in authority. So, if we consider now that every interaction that we actually with children actually leaves an impression on them, how
mm,
can we ensure that we can actually leave good impression on them, since we most immigrants some maybe because it's not part of their culture to be that
mm,
curious about other people. How can we try as much as possible to change this narrative and become a little bit more curious, so that the children can also pick up on this and become more curious themselves?
yeah. Yeah, I think it all comes to do with the mindset. You know, the mindset is very powerful because there are people that have been in this country for 20 years and they still haven't they're still struggling to accept that there are other ways to do things.
Yeah.
So I think it's the mindset, and the world is changing, and I feel sorry for any adult parent who has refused to acknowledge that the world is changing because that person is in limbo. And in as much as we know the world is changing, the world is a scary place. We need to model being curious. I'll give you an example. I see parents that come to the hospital, and you have to show curiosity. For example, you want to know why is this happening? And I see different kinds of African parents. I see the ones that are really very curious, and they ask lots of questions. Why is this? Why is this? Why is this? They don't just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
If they don't understand, they'll be like, I don't understand. Can you explain further? And
Yeah.
when you're doing that, the kids are watching you because
Yeah.
it's part of life.
Yeah.
And they're watching you to see that my mom would always keep asking questions until she understands or until
Yeah.
my dad understands.
Yeah.
And that's what the kids actually see. And
Yeah.
those kids will grow up and know that asking questions is useful
Yeah.
and asking question isn't daft. You have
Yeah.
to keep on asking questions. And I'll revert to myself because at the end of the day, it's my experience. And a lot of things I've learned in life today, I learned it a lot, in the last 10 years. A lot of things I learned in the last 10 years, I learned from non-Africans.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is because you don't know what you don't know. And I'll say that again. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Uh, Um. So how can parents now? You give an example of parents that come to the hospital and they ask a lot of
Mm,
questions, and their
yeah.
children watch them ask those questions, and they pick up on
Mm,
that. But how can parents actually create this curiosity? Now, for example, like growing up, if you remember, there were kids who were actually they read a lot of novels. If you
mm,
remember, while other people
yeah.
did not even bother to read anything. So, but
Yeah.
how can parents now be curious enough to create that right environment for the children to actually thrive socially and academically, like be so curious, because that curiosity will drive them to do well in school and also do well
Uh,
socially. So how can they create that environment?
I think it's by parents actually having that open-mindedness to integrate with other people as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really key. If parents decide not to integrate with other people, decide to just hold on to their people, maybe I don't
Nigerians.
discuss I only talk to Nigerians, I only talk to my sister here, my uncle here. I don't think you're gonna learn anything new.
Yeah, true. I agree that.
I don't think if I only had friends that are Nigerians, I don't think I would learn anything new personally. I won't learn anything new because I think I've heard it all from a Nigerian background. But
Yeah.
I think if parents, open their hearts and listen, sometimes, parents don't actually need to ask questions. But when you're present there and you listen, you can hear things.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, some parents might decide to just focus on their job and do their job and not really interact with people, do their job and go home. And that makes them quite, I'm sorry to say, but it makes you very short-sighted
Yeah.
and it makes your scope of reasoning quite narrow.
Yeah.
because you don't really know how it works elsewhere. So I think for parents to be able to learn how to be curious, and as I said, it's not in everyone's nature. Some people will struggle more than others, but I think putting some effort to actually listen, integrate, and sometimes you listen and you hear unpleasant things.
Yeah,
You're not always going to hear pleasant things when you listen.
but you
But I
have to
think when
see.
you
Yeah,
yeah, but I think when you listen and hear unpleasant things, you've learned something new.
true.
You've learned something new. You might have learned a sign. Maybe you're there listening to another parent who is struggling with their teenage child
Yeah,
and hearing unpleasant things, and you can hear about the signs which you were not aware of. And then you go back home and have some discussion with your own teenage child and, start looking out for those signs that will make you worry that your teenage child is becoming a bit funny, with the way they approach life,
yeah,
and that's how you learn. But if we as African parents allow ourselves to have a narrow scope of reasoning, then our kids might outsmart us, and we are not able to help them if they outsmart us. If they know a lot of things we don't know, then we can't actually help them when they are in trouble.
true.
Yeah.
But I agree with that because so have you ever been in a situation where you know something and you understand it, but the people around you don't understand it? Like you become frustrated, like explaining
Mm.
that thing. So
Yeah.
I get it. It may be frustrating for the child because you know what you're talking about, but the people you are telling or your parents you are talking to, they don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, it happens
It-
a lot in this country. It does
yeah,
happen a lot when I see teenagers, especially when I see teenagers struggling with their mental health, and they're Africans because mental
yeah,
health affects anyone, and they're
yeah,
Africans, and I tend to speak to them alone, and what I usually get from them is that their parents don't get it,
yeah,
and that's usually the common denominator. My mom doesn't get it, my dad doesn't get it, and that, as you said, that really makes children and teenagers more frustrated
yeah. I
because
agree.
they know that maybe they have another schoolmate who is getting good support from their parents,
Yeah,
and they themselves are not getting the support because their parents don't know what they don't know,
yeah.
and then you can't help your child, and your child is frustrated, and things don't get better.
Yeah, I agree, I agree with
Yeah.
that. But because you mentioned mental health and you mentioned that the parents end up working, they don't interact with people they work with, and all. So I'm going to link it to bullying because
Oh.
I noticed a lot of immigrants, like when they came, they were so lovey-dovey, jovial, friendly. But one of the two things may happen in the workplace, and their attitude will change. They tend
Mm,
to keep to themselves at
mm,
the end of the day, maybe because they've been bullied, passive
mm.
aggression or whatever, in one way or the other. And sometimes they tend to forget that their children may be passing through the same thing in school as well.
Yeah.
So how can the curious parent, how can those African and immigrant parents actually stay curious to understand that yeah, I'm going through this that may have changed my behavior towards um my attitude towards life and work, that may be the thing affecting their children in school now, and affecting their mental,
Mm,
for them to that open mind to see that there may be a link there.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think I feel so sorry for parents, or anyone in this country who is working in a toxic environment,
Yeah,
and they feel that they have no option to leave. I feel so sorry because I do know that, obviously, because if you're on a visa, then it becomes very tricky to just, abandon a
abandon.
job.
Yeah,
So I can only feel so sorry because I've been in a situation where I've seen people being bullied and all that, and it's so exhausting that when, as a parent, you feel that you're being bullied or discriminated at work, you're not a happy parent.
it's
And I
true.
usually say that if you're not a happy parent, I don't think your children will be happy,
Yeah,
and that's just the bitter truth. And that is a different and difficult situation altogether, because as a parent you need to have your mind needs to be sane enough to be able to be curious.
yeah,
If you are losing your mind because of your unhealthy work environment, I don't think you have the headspace to be
yeah,
curious.
yeah,
So I think the first thing for that situation will be that we need to sort out how do we address the situation at work. Do we need to talk to someone? Do we need to start looking for another job? Because you need to be happy as a parent. If you're not happy as a parent, you can't really afford to protect your children the way you want to because you yourself, your mind is not intact.
Yeah,
So it's quite complicated, yeah. And a lot of people are in that situation in this country. I know
yeah,
that plenty people are in this
exactly.
country in that situation, and it's really hard. And it's really hard to work in a place where you feel so helpless and you feel so vulnerable and you feel so frustrated because you have to work to pay your bills, and then you come back home an unhappy person and you unleash that to your children
Yeah,
without even knowing that. And
yeah,
then it's a vicious cycle because your children become distant from you
yeah,
and they are unlikely to share any problems with you as their parent. And it's a mess. So I think my advice to your platform when it comes to people that are feeling very overwhelmed or frustrated or helpless at work is I feel so sorry for them, but I think there will be a way somehow. It might take time, but no one deserves to be in an unhealthy environment because it never helps anyone. It never helps the parents. It never helps the children. And then if you're not happy, there's no way you're not gonna be curious. You're not working with your fellow colleagues. You don't want to have anything to do with them. And then if there was something that you could learn from them, you can't even learn from them because there's no chance.
yeah.
Yeah.
But but that's what I'm saying. Like, how I know that if somebody's in a toxic environment, it's hard for them to think straight. I get that,
Mm,
but
mm,
how can they develop that self awareness now? Because you said it's hard for them to develop the curiosity. Fine, but self
yeah.
awareness to actually understand oh my god, I'm actually going through this stuff at work, which is messy,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
children may be going through the same thing. That's why they're always on the edge
Yeah.
or frustrated. Like that, you see what I mean? Like, how
Yes.
can they
Yes.
develop that self awareness to actually understand? And because if you develop that self awareness, then you can actually be patient and have some empathy towards the child to
Yeah.
understand they may be going through the
Yeah.
same thing. They are
Mm.
being bullied at school as well.
Yeah. I think it's really hard because when you're not happy, I don't think you think very well. Self-awareness comes at the bottom of your priority list, because you're very angry. But I think the lucky people who have had problems at work, the lucky ones are the ones that have a good support system, good anchor.
Yeah,
For example, the person is not if the person is lucky enough not to be a single parent, the person has a supportive partner or
yeah,
husband or wife, and the person has supportive friends and have friends that are enlightened to actually support you to get through that process and to kind of remind you to be self-aware.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's so difficult because if you have friends who will maybe spend the whole of the time, supporting you in hating the people you're hating,
It
which is
doesn't
what
help.
happens naturally, it doesn't help.
Yeah, it
Because
doesn't
have
help.
a group of friends who will join hands with you to mount a lot of hate on the
Yeah,
people that have been nasty to you, which is natural.
it's natural.
And then you need people that will be empathetic around you and yet be objective with
Yeah,
you so that they make you see things that you don't see when you're clouded with a lot of
with
negative
emotion.
emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Emotions will cloud your judgment. I agree with that.
Mm,
We're human beings. No matter how calm you are, there must be a point you get. If you are in that kind of toxic environment, you get to the point where you lose it. It's
mm,
not alright. You lose it, no matter how calm you are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
hard. No, yeah.
it's really really hard. But now assuming now that the parents are in now said they've taken themselves out of those toxic environments. Now they are now in a very healthy environment. They love what they are doing, they love the work they do, they're happy to get up in the morning and go to work. So how can they now, as curious parents, make their children to learn anything, be it sport or book, anything, but to learn it with joy? How can they make their children to be curious to learn anything with joy?
I think, as we normally say, you can't give what you don't have.
True.
And I said that because we know that we all have different parents. Some of our parents are educated, some of us are not. Some of our parents are not educated. Some of our parents went through university and got a lot of degrees and postgraduate qualifications. We know there are some parents that didn't go to a tertiary institution. So you see that it will vary.
Yeah.
What you pass along from yourself as a parent to your child will vary depending on the experience you've had and the knowledge you have and where you are. And that's why, unfortunately, we're not going to be equal. But I think that if parents aspire to be better than they are, I think that actually translates to children.
Yeah.
If you have an African parent who's never read a novel in their life, I think it's really I don't expect them to just wake up and tell their children, oh, we need to buy some novels to read
Yeah.
because they never did that as parents. And that's where when you integrate with other people, you kind of know that this child is doing so well because their parents, kind of encourage them to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I think probably we'll try that in my own home to see whether my own child would learn and actually excel in X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
But when parents actually, I go back to not integrating, and when you don't integrate, you don't know what's out there. You don't know the right things to do, the right buttons to press, the right doors to knock at in order to get the best for your children. Then you only stick to what you know, which may not be enough for your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I, I agree with that. Because I use sports as an example because sports is something that can actually help the kids to be curious in every ramification of life and also be happy.
Yeah.
One word or the other.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
It can also help them to make a lot of friends. So that's
Yeah.
why I use sports. But like you said, you can't give what you don't know. If the parents are not into sports or anyway, it will be even hard for
Yeah.
them to know that sports can actually provide their kids with a lot of things that the school cannot provide them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely. Absolutely. That comes with swimming as well. We talk about swimming
exactly.
at work, and I blame my parents. That's one thing I blame my parents. I blame most of the African parents who actually did not stimulate us to swim or outrightly said no, you're not
No,
going close to water. You're not going
but
close to water.
but swimming is still a sport. That's what I'm just. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly, it's sport.
Yeah,
Exactly. When you said sports, now I thought about swimming because it's
yeah,
something that I'm struggling with because I started learning how to swim 2 years ago, which eventually I dumped. I need to go back to it. But now I've decided my nephews and my nieces are learning how to swim as children, right?
yeah,
So when we talk about it at work, and we know that a lot of families from Africa and Asia actually don't know how to swim because our parents didn't consider that it was relevant.
yeah,
But now we know that even my dad, who actually wasn't informed about swimming, knows that swimming is a life skill
yeah,
that people should learn how to swim. So, and that's really important because if you only stick to people that you talk to, then you all are in a committee of, oh no, no swimming, and that's it.
yeah. No, no.
But when you start, integrating with other people and you start understanding the benefits
You learn
of
something from them.
swimming from other families, and you'd be like, okay, fine, okay, how much does it? Hope it's not too much. I don't want it to break a bank. I hope
Yeah,
it's not too much. They might tell you, oh no, you don't have to pay. There are some leisure centers where they actually do free lessons for children.
for
Oh
children. Yeah,
wow, I didn't know that because it's not something we talk about when we come for an African gathering.
yeah,
We know that it's not something we talk about, but when you hear one or two things at work and then they tell you, oh well, it's free actually for children. Oh wow, okay, fine, I'm gonna make out time one day a week to take my child for a swimming lesson since it's free because we need to think about the financial implications, right?
yeah,
And that's quite a decent example of that because obviously it's affected a lot of us. A lot of us don't know how to swim
yeah,
because it wasn't something that was talked about at all growing up, that it was relevant, that it's useful. But now everyone now knows that it's useful because people are getting drowned.
yeah,
And everyone has woken up, even in third world countries, that think that children should learn how to swim. Yeah.
yeah. No, um, I agree. I remember growing up. My mom would tell me I had a dream where you drown. Don't ever go near if you see water,
Yeah,
run. Like
yeah,
it's part of African superstition and all. Even
yeah.
sport, most of them did not encourage their children to play sport. For example, I remember like when they would tell me not to play football, maybe I will sneak out and go and play football.
Mm.
My parents would be so angry. We told you to study, blah blah. But because I did all those stuff and I played a lot of football and I did a lot of sports, I can tell you sports can teach you a lot of things. I like something
Yeah,
that you cannot just learn in a class.
yeah.
You can learn a lot of
Yes,
things.
yes. A lot of things out there for children, recreations, and people don't know that until they start mingling with people. I remember
Yeah.
my sister when she came to this country newly, a couple of years ago, she got a lot of information on the bus because she was being very nosy and she was just new to the country. She was just asking questions, asking, she a lot of information she got because of her child
Yeah.
was from some random chats with strangers, obviously, women, you look at people and you feel comfortable talking to them, you talk to them. But just to give you an example how it's easy for some people, it's easy for my sister,
Yeah.
it's easy for my sister, but it's not very easy for my other sister that you know.
Yeah.
The one it's not easy for her. It takes her extra effort to
Yeah.
talk to someone she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Whereas my other sister can talk to anyone, so long as you're a person, you look normal, she will talk to you
Yeah.
and get any information from you. So, and it's just to tell you that you hardly go wrong by being curious as a parent, particularly when you're in a different environment and you're trying to get as much information you can to enrich yourself
Yeah.
and to help your children. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you just mentioned pregnancy, because parents need to be curious about this as well. You know, I there was a would I call it a symposium? Someone organized recently, and I went to the symposium. So this consultant gave a presentation about providing information about pregnancy for South
Mm,
Asian moms because
okay.
some of them they didn't know how to access antenatal care and the rest of them, and so they made this app available in different languages: Hindi, Punjabi, Bengali. So you see, I started thinking I don't
Mm,
even think there's anything like that for African parents because a lot of them still need this information and they don't know who to ask. But naturally, because your sister is the kind of person who can actually go out there and just interact with people, some people and others are not like that because
mm,
naturally they are introverted or something. So it's not their
mm,
thing. So there must be another way to keep them curious as well,
yeah.
to provide information to them.
Yeah, but I think Africans in this country are quite lucky because English is our lingua franca,
Yeah,
is the official language. So I don't think I've come across any African parent at the workplace who wouldn't understand English, particularly from West Africa,
yeah,
obviously. I'm not talking about there's some other African countries where their official language might be
yeah,
more Arabic than English. But I think for Nigeria, for instance, and our neighboring countries that speak English. English is not, if we have the information, we understand it. But I think people have to, in themselves, be motivated to seek information because no one is going to just give you information like that
true.
um, unless it's something generic. Because you can have generic information, but if you need something specific, you have to ask, I don't understand this. What does this thing mean? What does this mean? I
Yeah,
know people that call me on the phone and tell me the doctor said this, but I don't understand. And my question is usually, why didn't you ask them? And they've never given me an answer to that question. I've never got an answer for that question. I've
yeah,
never.
yeah,
Even people related to me when they ask me a question, I'll be like, but why are you asking me this question? Because I'm sure the person may have asked you, do you have any questions? Or even if you didn't get that question, you had the opportunity to say, I don't understand this sentence. What does it mean? And you're asking me.
yeah.
So it's just the mindset, and we need to move away from that. I think we need to move away um
Being
from not
scared to ask
asking.
questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I won't even say it's being scared. I think it's being because I mean I don't think Africans are scared people.
Yeah.
I don't think we're scared people. I think it's just being, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what it is about not asking questions. I don't know what that is. And
Maybe scared is not the word, but
yeah,
you see that a lot of
I
people
don't.
are taken aback. They don't like if they see you, for example, Dr. Ebuka, Canada, you are so bold that you can actually just walk up to anybody and ask questions. Some people find this surprising. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say scared, but it's not something they would do naturally. Like a lot of people, they will rather you ask the question and then they will hear the answer. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
know why.
wonder. Yeah, I wondered if I'm trying to think back in Nigeria, are we like that? Because I think as Nigerians, for example, because I know that this your podcast goes beyond Nigeria, but for
Yeah,
Nigerians, for example, I know we are very outgoing. Back home in
yeah,
Nigeria, we are very loud,
yeah,
and we're very loud, and we go for what we want
yeah.
without fear. So I'm not very sure whether it's because it's a new it's
No,
a
no,
new
no,
a new place.
no,
I
no,
don't
no, no,
know.
no, no, but still, when you think about it, a lot of people still in Nigeria, if you look
Mm.
back and reflect, you realize a lot of people in Nigeria, they don't really ask questions directly. They'll keep going round and round. They want to ask that question, but maybe they're scared of how it's going to come out. They'll keep going round and round, and they will never go straight to the question to ask you that question. But they'll keep getting around until they get the information they want in another way. But
And I
I don't
think
know why.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I think another cohort as well will be people that assume they know everything.
yeah,
I think that's another thing I see amongst us Nigerians. For example, we sometimes we assume we know everything. And
yeah.
that's why obviously we kind of I kind of feel that our people we are full of opinions. Everyone has an opinion about to something they know nothing about, and people have opinions. And when you become opinionated, then I think it goes against being curious because you assume you know everything.
Yeah,
You see someone that hasn't gone to medical school, but they will tell you stuff about medicine.
yeah.
And they'd be like, what are you talking about? And I think being opinionated, it has its benefits. But I think when it becomes too extra, then it goes against people actually learning by asking questions. So I
Um,
think, yeah,
I feel some. I understand. Like, I think a lot of people, like you said, we're talking about curiosity now. A lot of people sometimes is linked to ego. All right.
yeah,
You could see
yeah,
somebody right now, you're a consultant in pediatric medicine. Like, no matter how much I think I know science, you know your stuff. I will still come to you and ask you, hey, Dr. Ken, what do you think about this? But you see somebody, even when you are telling the person that you are trying to explain how it works, oh, this is the medication we give for this, the person will argue with you and
yeah,
argue and argue.
yeah,
Sometimes it's just linked to the ego.
mm,
It's just the ego.
yeah. And
Because
I think,
for
yeah,
you to
yeah,
learn, you need to be a little bit humble and accept that you
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it's exhausting when you meet people when people are like that. I think it's exhausting for children as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's exhausting for children. I've seen children feeling exhausted when their parents are, and it's not peculiar to Africans, but when parents are always talking over them,
Yeah.
and then you see some teenagers asking their mom or dad, wait, hold on, mom, hold on, mom, hold on, dad, hold on, let's hear what they have to say. So, and when you keep talking over people, I don't think you have the opportunity to actually listen.
Yeah.
And
Nah.
when you don't listen, you don't learn.
Yeah.
So I think, another take-home message from me is that people should actually and should listen. And I wasn't like that before. I used to be very, very spontaneous and very impatient. But I think over the last few years, I've learned that sometimes I just listen and let you talk. Because when I let you talk, or even if I think you're talking nonsense, sometimes I might learn
Mm-hmm.
something new that you've just said. I'll be like, oh, I didn't actually think it that way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think as parents, should model curiosity so that the children watch them, see how they're always asking questions, and you ask questions. If you're not sure, you ask questions, so that kids grow up to know that you need to ask questions to get what you want. Sometimes
Yeah.
you need to ask questions to get clarity. You need to ask questions for the other person to actually know what you need.
Yeah.
If you don't ask questions, some people assume that you're fine,
Yeah.
but you're not. So, and no one is going to keep asking you, are you okay? Are you okay? So we need to ask questions so that people know that, okay, we need help. So I think eh, I can't overemphasize the great importance of our parents, our African parents, particularly those who migrated to the UK, to be curious in all spheres of life so that we can learn new things for our children. And as well, our children can look at us and, emulate these good skills and,
Yeah,
carry on to imbibe and embrace the art of curiosity.
yeah. No, what you said about exhausting, like I find it exhausting when people who argue a lot. Because for you, like you said, but it's a learning process. We unlearn some things and we learn along the way. So, but now some parents, how? Okay, for example, I've seen a lot of parents. They will tell you, "Oh, my child is shy and not good like others."
Mhm.
How can some of our African parents? How can we actually make them curious to understand maybe there's a difference between being introverted and shy?
Yeah, I think it's a very sensitive area, isn't it? Because we parents would want to protect their children, um, and I think one way we can make our children express their confidence because we don't want to have shy children who eventually have low self-esteem,
Yeah,
which will be a bad idea, not in this current world because the world will consume them.
yeah,
And once you lose your self-esteem or confidence as a child, then I don't think the world has a place now because the world is so tough.
yeah,
So I think getting those children engaged with activities is a good place to start.
yeah,
I know families that take their children for once a week, gymnastics.
yeah,
They do gymnastics, they do ballet dancing, things that wouldn't necessarily cost a lot of money because a lot of things are money in this country.
yeah,
The ones that have the money, go for piano lessons and things like that. But no matter how much you earn, there's some things that are quite very subsidized or even nearly free,
uh-huh.
where you can get your children to go out there and interact with people. Because we do know that the country itself can be quite isolating.
Yeah,
So I think having a lot of activities, not a lot, but reasonable activities that we as parents can cope with our busy schedule, getting them out there to mingle with other children, who we trust their parents as well, because we don't want our children to be involved with children of questionable character.
yeah,
But I think the one way to get them out to improve their self-confidence would be to put them out there into some extracurricular activities that will improve their well-being, improve their confidence, and they come out of their shell and they become less shy.
yeah, yeah. Uh, which which links back to the sports we mentioned because he gave example with gymnastics now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I see a lot
um,
of children with gymnastics. I know them because I have a chat with them. They all come with, maybe I've twisted my ankle or, I landed funny on my hand. So,
yeah,
and I have chats with all of them. So I don't have children personally, but I
yeah,
do know a lot about children, not just about when they're sick, but
yeah,
about things they do in their free time because I love to chat about them because I try to get information from my own nephew.
yeah,
I'm trying to get information from my own nephew what will be best. I remember I told my sister, take this money, go and book Kobe into swimming classes and all that. Actually, I need to ask her again if we've continued doing that.
yeah.
That he needs to do that
Oh, she's taking
because
your money.
yeah, I'm the one that suggested it anyway. So I have to they have to provide the money.
Hmm.
I have to provide the money, and that's why I know that these things may not be very cheap
Yeah, yeah.
because I do pay for these things. I do pay
Not
for these
just
things. So
not just cheap, not just the money, the time. For
the
example,
time, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. You have to get the
yeah,
time, yeah.
the time. For example, even if you say you want your child to join like a football club, yeah, you have to
It
make
takes
out that
time.
time to go take the child to the football games and
Yeah,
every to the training and everything. You have to bring out the time.
it takes
So
time. Yeah.
yeah,
It takes time. So it takes time, and it takes time, and I agree. And I think obviously, if we manage to have a good support network,
yeah,
then I think people have a way of going of getting around this by having a good network where people support you. People can
Yeah.
take it in turns. You take my child today, I'll take your child the next day or
Yeah.
the next time. So I think some people have come,
Yeah.
found ways to work around it so that it works for them because we want our children to be out there, to be confident,
Yeah.
and ways to get this confidence out is by asking questions.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? I go on holidays a lot from recommendations from my interactions with other people from other ethnicities, and they tell me which holidays I'll get a good bargain, so I'll get it very cheap.
Yeah.
I'll get it very cheap if I use this particular holiday agency or this and that, and I've introduced a lot of people to that. You can get a cheaper deal for your family if you
Yeah.
use this, but if you
Yeah.
don't ask,
You will
you
know.
won't know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you would know. Then you start wondering, oh, how is this doctor traveling all over the world?
Yeah, and the children themselves, they feel shortchanged because they know of their classmates and friends who go on holidays,
Yeah.
and they've never been anywhere. And we know it costs money, but if you don't ask questions, you wouldn't know that there are actually, if you
Ways to
book
make it
ahead,
cheaper. Yeah.
if you book 1 year ahead with
Yeah.
some deals as an NHS staff or this staff, you can actually get some discounts
Yeah.
and make it work for you. But you don't know these things if you don't ask questions, and that's why you have to be curious.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But because of time now, I'm going to ask a final question. So
Yeah.
from experience now with dealing with children in the emergency ward, right? Um, how important do you think music is to children? Because we've been talking about sports now. I'm trying to talk about
Mm.
music now. And do you think music makes them intelligent? And is music like equivalent to full body workout for the brain?
Mm, yeah, I think that's two different things, isn't it? Because you need your physical health and your mental health.
Yeah,
Um, sport will improve both. Sports
yeah,
can improve physical and mental
yeah,
health. I think music is great. Some people go for music classes,
yeah.
and we know there are some activities, our extracurricular activities that incorporate music and dance. And then music and dance are quite physical and fun.
Yeah,
So I think music is good. It depends on the context. It's really good if music helps in the winter where people are stuck indoors. I think if it's a family that enjoys music, I think music is the way to go
yeah,
because it makes people happy. And it makes
yeah,
me happy personally. I mean, I take my long walks all the time with my headphone. I never go out without my headphones.
yeah,
And I know that it helps me, and it helps me. I don't feel depressed or
yeah,
sad because we know we live in a sad world now.
yeah,
But I think it really helps, and yeah, there's so many ways to do things, and just people need to see what works for them and for their family,
yeah.
and just make it work. And you just have to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you wouldn't know who has gone through the same
Situation. Yeah,
situation, or someone that's had the same challenges like you,
yeah,
and how they've managed to deal with that. But if you just stay in your own cocoon, then you just know what you know, and then you're very limited in whatever you do, and that's not great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's true. That's true. But that's all the time we have for this week. Dr. Kenneth, thank you so much. It's been a very, very insightful conversation.
My pleasure. Yeah, I've enjoyed talking about it actually because as as we talk, I kind of it makes me self-reflect, and I think I talk about things I actually haven't talked about in the last year or so,
Yeah,
and it's quite refreshing for me to kind of share my personal experience and also my experience through my family who are in this country who have gone through their struggles as any
yeah,
other immigrant,
yeah,
and also my struggle as a single person in a country
yeah,
because we all have our peculiar struggles as
yeah,
immigrants, and
yeah,
also what I've come across as a healthcare professional and seeing different people from
yeah,
different spheres and walks of life and what I've learned from them. Yeah,
yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah, so thanks for having me talk about this.
yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll do this again for the third time.
Oh, no props, no props. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, take care now, Rita. Thanks.